Hello, this is Paul Harris for CGS. Today I'm joined by Akiba Leisman, CEO of Mako Mining. If you like these videos, please subscribe below.
How's it going, Paul? Good to see you.
Very well, thank you. You're building a gold mine at San Albino in Nicaragua. How is that progressing? And when do you think you'll be able to start putting ore into the mill?
Sure. So, of our principal project, which is a 500 ton per day operation called San Albino, we're approximately 70% done as of this morning. In terms of how it's going, when I took over as full-time CEO in August of last year, I gave a construction schedule to have first gold pour by the late summer of this calendar year, 2020. And in March, due to the pandemic, we pushed back our first gold pour date from late summer to sometime in Q4. And then we had a further refinement of that schedule a couple of weeks ago to take our first gold pour date back to January of next calendar year, and to expect to have commercial production in early Q2 of next year. So due to the pandemic, there's been an aggregate of somewhere between 4 and 5 months to delay of the original project schedule that was delineated back last August in 2019. And based on the facts on the ground, I'm ecstatic that we've only been able to delay this project 4 to 5 months. It really has been a challenge in terms of the stressing of the global supply chain, getting people in and out of Nicaragua. Our local contractors have stepped up to the plate. And then even with no improvements on the ground, we're very comfortable with the schedule. We have full visibility in terms of remaining CapEx that needs to be done over the project. And then certainly going forward, we have a very good handle on the day-to-day operations of San Albino as it stands right now.
Thank you. You've just done a financing, $28.4 million Canadian. So is that enough to get you through the construction period?
Yeah, and then some. So the financing was done effectively in 2 tranches. One was a private placement that was done to the controlling shareholder, Wexford Capital. And they took just over 16 million Canadian, or US $12 million of capital to Wexford themselves. And then that is going to be sufficient to do a few things. To finish the project, to not only get us to first gold pour in early January of next year, but also commercial production. So a full 3-month ramp-up schedule we're financing over here in early Q2 of next year. And then also to continue exploring at the pace that we've been exploring at Las Conchitas with our single drill rig that we have there right now, as well as to finance mining. We started mining sporadically in February of this year, and then we're going to be ramping up mining from now until commercial production in Q2. So all of that working capital, in addition, will be financed through that US $12 million. Now, the remainder, which will be roughly US $8 million, that will, again, we like to think in US dollars rather than the Canadian ones, that is all going to be going towards balance sheet. So as of today, there exists just over US $15 million of debt. And then of that 8, we anticipate repaying US $5 million of that debt as soon as practicable. And then we'll have $3 million of additional capital on our balance sheet, because 2020 has thrown us many curveballs in terms of how this project progressed. And then if we don't need that $3 million, that also will be used for debt repayment. So not only are we fully financed to production, but we've raised more than enough capital to get us through to commercial production in Q2 of next year.
Okay, you mentioned exploration there. Over the past year, you've added to your land package through an acquisition, but also through getting some concessions from the government. What is the strategy there, and why are you building your land package?
That's right. So we've expanded our ground, so it's roughly 200 square kilometers. And the way that we think about everything over in Nicaragua is that we're working on 3 projects. We got to get that 500 ton per day mine up and running. All of the basic infrastructure that's being built for our 500 ton per day operation is expandable to 1,000 tons a day. And with the objective of starting to mine at that level by 2022, coming from ground that we're exploring at the south. And then thirdly, which is probably more important than the first 2, is the regional exploration that we have over at our ground. Is that we do think that we're sitting on an orogenic gold mining camp here. This is a very different type of geology than you would expect to see in Central America. It's very different than some of our country compatriots in terms of what they're exploring, which tend to be volcanic hosted epithermal deposits. Ours is nothing of the sort. It is a sedimentary hosted orogenic system. And usually these systems tend to house many millions of ounces of gold in inventory when all is said and done. So our objective right now is to continue an exploration program for some satellite deposits. But really when the mine starts getting into cash flow, when we hit commercial production in early Q2 of next year, is to then to really focus on some of the regional targets. We currently sit and control about 23 kilometers of effectively untested strike in our deposit. We've had some very rudimentary geochem surveys that have been done over at our site, mostly prospecting in nature. It is clear to us that mineralization continues across the full 23 kilometers of strike. In fact, it goes off our property in either direction. And then once we have the financial capacity and the human resources capacity to go and explore the remaining of the 200 square kilometers that we have, we'll do it. Because in many respects, that's probably the most valuable part of Mako as it exists today.
Okay, so but at the moment, and from the drill results you've been putting out, the exploration is starting sort of closer to home, closer to San Albino, specifically on the Las Conchitas area, where you've been getting sort of double-digit grams per ton in the drilling. How is Las Conchitas shaping up, and when do you think you'll be in a position to bring that into a resource statement?
Right. So the objective with our single rig that we're operating right now is to really go and highlight some of the target areas that we have. And we have 8 separate target zones within Las Conchitas. The most advanced is what we're working on, which is towards the southern part of it, an area called Bayakun. And over at Bayakun, it's clear that we've cracked the geological controls, the code, if you will, for this particular area. So we've released 40 holes to date, 37 of which have hit mineralization. And the only 3 that have missed have been because of some structural discontinuity, whether it was a localized fault or some dikes that were coming up through the system. So in effect, we have a 100% hit rate over at Bayakun right now, which is fantastic. We're going to be releasing some additional holes that we still have remaining over the course of the next month or 2. And then we're going to be taking that single rig to some of the other 8 zones so we can get a better handle on the geological controls. Now, as soon as the mine turns on, very quickly, we're going to be going from a single rig to what we were drilling at the end of last year, which was as much as 6 rigs in operation from before. And over there, we're going to be infilling some of the more advanced targets, Bayakun being one, and then hopefully there'll be more than one, such that by sometime next calendar year, we'll have a maiden resource over at Las Conchitas. Sometime in 2022, we'll develop ideally integrated economics to show the feasibility of mining this at 1,000 tons a day, combining both San Albino and Las Conchitas. And then by very late 2022, to be mining it at that level.
Okay, so the idea there is for that to enable you to expand the plant and produce more gold.
Yeah, and actually most of the infrastructure that's being built right now for the 500 tons per day is pretty easily expandable. So our crusher can easily handle 1,500 tons a day. That's a brand new crusher. We have 2 parallel 500 ton per day mills that have been set on their bearings over at site right now. So running them both in parallel, we'll be able to expand to 1,000 tons a day. We've poured the foundations for 10 leach tanks. Based on our expectations of residence time, we'll only need to put the mineralized material in there in 5 tanks for our expected recoveries. But we've poured the foundations for 10, so we'll just have to build 5 additional tanks. We want to run that at 1,000 tons a day. Very small capex costs. Our filter press for our dry stack storage facility is minor modifications. It's capable of handling over 1,000 tons a day. So maybe an addition of another series of gen sets, maybe some minor modifications to our refinery, we'll be able to increase throughput through our plant at 1,000 tons a day. We'll just have to build additional tailings capacity. We'll have to build a haul road from Las Conchitas up to the southern part of our infrastructure over at San Albino. but all of this will be able to expand somewhere in the neighborhood of a very low double-digit million upfront capex to expand to 1,000 tons a day, and well within our capacity to finance that through operating cash flow.
Yeah, I remember during the site visit, the end of last year, Jesse, your GM, was basically saying, the site's been arranged to cope with, to allow for a very easy doubling of capacity.
Yeah, that's correct. And we're well advanced on that. So since you were there, we've actually built 70% of the plant. In fact, the plant itself is well in excess of 80% complete. Most of the remaining project that we have left is our tailings facility, which I would classify as about a third complete as of today. So most of the remaining part of this calendar year is just finishing off our tailings storage facility. And then we've started to mine the high grade part of our deposit. We set off our first blast about a little over a week ago. So we're mining high grade material. We're stockpiling it in front of our crusher. The plant's over 80% built, and then we'll focus on finishing off our tailings storage facility and associated water treatment plant, such that we'll be mechanically finished by the end of this calendar year.
Okay, the gold price has been rising nicely throughout this year. Are you starting, as you get closer to production, you're starting to get more interest from different investors, generalist investors, new people trying to get in touch with you?
Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? So I've been involved with Mako and its predecessors going back since 2012. We've attempted to raise non-Wexford capital 6 times. I think this is our 6th time that we raised our hand. Each of the last 5 I would consider to be failures, right? So of the capital that's been put into Mako and its predecessors, I believe 96% has come from Wexford. So very little outside capital has been raised. This is the first time that we've had a traditional underwritten bought deal, and frankly, not a very easy structure. This was a private placement, 4-month hold type structure to the institutional community by and large, although there was a fairly substantial retail component over here, coming into a company that Wexford still controls. It was a huge deal for this company in terms of being able to run this as an independent organization. And there's a whole history of why these are failure to raise outside capital from before. Asset quality, Wexford's involvement, not wanting to deal with controlling shareholders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Having a muddled structure as well. A lot of that has been cleaned up, but certainly what we've experienced over the last 2 weeks, it's night and day from what we've experienced over the course of the last 7 years. It helps to have an amazing asset. So we expect this to be the highest grade open pit only mine in the world when it turns on early next year. It helps to have a good gold market. So when I was doing our institutional marketing during the period of the equity raise, I had 31 separate meetings. It usually was pulling teeth to get on the phone with 1 or 2 institutions for companies that I've managed in the past. So clearly there was a change in sentiment. And frankly, I think Stifel should be given credit as well. I think they did a great job with the transaction too. So it was a team effort to get the exposure and other investor interest in Mako, and I couldn't be more ecstatic in terms of how things turned out.
I imagine it's very reassuring to have the money in the bank to complete the build, and then some to have the working capital as you go through those first few months, which can throw up some surprises as well of production. And finally, to sort of close off, what do you think will be the sort of key catalyst that we can expect to see coming from Mako over there, let's say the next 6 months?
Sure. So exploration continues, right? So at the same pace that we've been exploring really for the last few months, ever since we had a down throttle or exploration due to safety and hygiene issues due to the global pandemic. So we've been operating with a single rig. We're going to continue operating with a single rig until we get into commercial production, but the same pace of news flow really should be there. Now, over at San Albino, we announced that we're going to be updating our resource sometime this quarter, so in Q3. It'll probably be very, very late August or early September when that comes out. I've been pretty public about some of the different modeling techniques that we're doing right now with the help of a group out of Reno called Mine Development Associates, MDA. And by and large, at a 60,000 foot level, I think the differences between what will come out in Q3 versus what was there in 2015 is that we have a substantially higher grade, but lower ton deposit than what was put out in that 2015 resource estimate. There's 20 different reasons as to why that's the case, and all the data that we have from the info program and how we're working with MDA is confirming what I've thought and what I've publicly stated, really going back since I took over last August. So that's a huge catalyst coming out when we have like a real well done resource estimate that we endorse. It will basically have my name on that as well as MDA's. Now, additionally, we're going to start mining. Now, our lab, our production lab, is only starting to get up and running. It will probably be towards the end of August where we'll have a fully functional, production-worthy laboratory that are processing assays within day turnaround times like we expect for our normal operations. So really, after that lab turns on to its full capacity, we'll be reporting production data coming from the mine. Nobody, and it sounds kind of silly, but this is important. Nobody should be surprised that we're going to be mining double-digit grade gold, because that's what the drill holes are saying. But you know what? People will be surprised when we are going to be mining double-digit grade material. And I'm really eager to start showing what this mine is capable of doing, because I still don't think people get it when we say we're going to be the highest grade open pit mine in the world, and everything that means with respect to costs, cash flow, expandability, and what it means that this is a small part of what can potentially be a very large orogenic gold mining system.
Excellent. Well, I wish you all the best with the resource, the new resource, and the completion of the mine build. I look forward to speaking with you at some point in the future when these catalysts come out.
Sure, absolutely, Paul.